Hey, what's up? Good evening. Happy Friday night, and welcome to Friday Night Fire. My name is Mike Phillips, and here on my left, your right, is Mr. Matt Koenig.
That's me.
That is you.
That's me.
And we're here. We're here for this show is all about motivation, inspiration, faith-based foundation, and a lot of conversation between Matt and I. And we have been going through the book of Exodus in the Bible here, and so we're going to continue that this evening. We'll have some other conversation. We haven't been on for a couple weeks. There's a couple things just so that you all know out in I could say TV land, but it's not really TV land.
It's so cool though.
Okay, so for those of you out in TV land, vodcast land.
Yeah.
So we're going to do this show tonight. We're going to do this show probably in 2 weeks, so kind of the last Friday of May, and then we're going to take summer break because Matt has been working really hard on his bikini bod, and he wants to show it off.
That's exactly what's happening.
That is what's happening, dude. Listen, I've seen the. Well, I gotta be careful what I say here. I've seen the photos, the before and after photos on Facebook. I was gonna say, hey, I've seen the pictures, Matt, right? But
Yeah.
no, seriously, dude, huge physical transformation, weight transformation for you in the last about 6 months, 8 months?
Yeah, since September. So yeah, man, it's been good. God is good, and I've gotten into a great rhythm. I've finally learned some accountability in my life, dude, and really just started taking care of myself and learned how to do it, and which is why now I'm coaching other guys how to do it. So yeah, man, I'm so stoked, Mike.
No, I think it's awesome. And speaking of you coaching other dudes how to do it, I'm going to put on the screen right there. If you guys go check out Value Driven Coach, that's the correct link, right? That's
ValueDrivenCoach.com.
ValueDrivenCoach.com. Matt is getting into coaching like dudes over 30, dudes over
40.
35, dudes over 40.
If you're over 40, come on. If you're over 40 and you want to level up your life.
Level up your life. I say you heard it here, and he might consider 30, 32.
Yeah, like 30, 33, because that's like the cutoff.
Yeah, that's the cutoff.
If you're younger than 33, you're out.
Also, as always, this stream is sponsored by our friends over at StreamYard. So if you've got a message to get out, make sure you can go check out join-streamyard.com. And it is one of the best streaming platforms. So that's kind of our pause for commercial breaks, if you will. We've got the StreamYard stuff there. We have Matt's personal coaching that he's getting into. And with that, let's get into some Bible. What do we say? Jumping for Jesus tonight.
Yeah, and we're in Exodus 5 tonight, aren't we? We're starting to dig into Pharaoh's refusal. I think we ended last week after the foreskin, and the people believed Moses and Aaron. And then now we're in.
I think we were we on 5 or were we on 6? Because I was rereading it, and maybe it's just because I'm accustomed. Maybe I read ahead.
I think you read ahead.
Okay.
To be honest, because we like when we ended last time. We ended the last time with Moses performed the signs before the people, and they believed. And when they heard the Lord had attended to the Israelites, they sent their and had seen their affliction. They bowed down and worshiped. That's the Berean Bible, by the way. Sorry, I'm like flipping the script on the translation today.
And those are new glasses too. You're flipping the script on the translation, the glasses.
I'm gonna just do a plug for my favorite place to order glasses frames, by the way. And no, I don't get anything for this, but listen, you know I'm a nerd,
not sponsored.
Right? Yeah, hashtag not sponsored. But Zlul is this crazy site with the dopest frames. Like I got my new Run DMC looking ones that just came in that I gotta go get my lenses put in, but. What? Reverend or Daryl McDaniels in the house. These are my giant unibrow glasses that I love to wear. And then the other pair, it's like if you thought plastic 70s look was not back in style, you're wrong. Especially when you go with a nice shade of forest green.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, look at those are 70s. Like I look like I could have like an El Camino. Like it's
dude,
bro.
I feel like you should be like preaching right and put those back on tonight.
The David Koresh look.
Yeah.
I look like a Branch Davidian. Everybody's like, "What did we go watch?"
Welcome.
What's
to the
up,
show.
Raul Rexorus? Great to see ya.
He says, what's the fire? No, we were saying, I said, what's up, Friday Night Fire team? Not like, there's not a fire team. This is Friday Night Fire, and you are now part of the team. So anyway, we're in Exodus 5. I'm just going to start reading, man, and Matt will stop me. And we're where Moses and Aaron speak to Pharaoh. So after the presentation to Israel's leaders, Moses and Aaron went to speak to Pharaoh. They told him, "This is what the Lord God of Israel says: Let my people go, or they may hold a festival in my honor in the wilderness." So we're kind of catching up to from the prequels, if you will. Yeah. And "Is that so?" retorted Pharaoh.
So,
"And who is this Lord? Why should I listen to him and let Israel go? I don't know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." That seriously sounds like it should be read by like Skeletor from the old Masters of the Universe.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And one thing to note too, so I'm reading from the Berean Study Bible. No, this isn't a Jewish thing, Raul. This is like a whole Bible thing. We just dig in and we
New Living
dig
Translation.
through a book in the Bible. We wrestle with some of the weird things that jump out, and then we talk about, hey, is there something there that would apply to our lives today? This is like a place for, like, I love how the Dismantle podcast said it. I was just on the Dismantle, and their show always opens. It says, "We're here to create community, not converts." Right? So we don't always agree on everything, but we like to have a good conversation. So. Okay, so you know what just stood out to me though, and I don't know if the NLT does this too, but every time it says the Lord, it's referenced in like all 4 capital letters, right? Like that kind of Lord.
Right.
And so it was interesting to me because when Pharaoh says, "Who is this Lord?" Right? Like, who is this God that I should obey? Like his voice and let Israel go. I don't know the God, right? I don't know the Lord you're talking about. This is interesting because like Pharaoh isn't like new to gods. Like Egypt has a crap load of them. So he's like, who's this one that I'm supposed to listen to, right?
Well,
Like,
it's almost like it's like Pharaoh trash talk, right? Like, well, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Who's this guy?
Well, dude, I mean, but imagine, like, it's funny because, you and I, we go, all right, I believe in God, right? But even as a believer in God, if somebody I don't know, well, Pharaoh knew Moses, he grew up in his house. But if somebody showed up and was like, "Hey, God told me to tell you do this," like my response would be like, well, how do I know that you've got that authority, right? And that's what like Pharaoh, and granted, we if we've read through the story before, we'll dig in more, but I just think it's good to note that like the beginning of this isn't that outlandish for Pharaoh to be like, by whose authority am I supposed to listen, right? Because this isn't the God he's worshipped.
Well, and for all intents and purposes, like, he is the man of the time.
Yeah.
He is the most powerful person on earth, or supposed to be the most powerful person on earth at the time. So
yeah. So let's keep going. And are you asking who's the Most High God? Are you like saying Elohim? Yeah, or Adonai, El Shaddai? Like there are a lot of names that are used for God. Yeah. Go ahead, man. Verse 4.
So,
right?
but Aaron Moses persisted. The God of the Hebrews has met with us, they declared, so let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness so we can offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. If we don't, he will kill us with a plague or with the sword.
Let's stop there.
I was just going to say that.
Dude,
I knew it was coming.
So if anybody tuned in last week, though, Mike, let me ask you this. What did God actually tell Moses and Aaron to tell Pharaoh?
So originally he said, "Hey, go tell them to let the people go. Otherwise, we're going to perform all these miracles, right? That we talked about, the white hand a whole lot, the hand in the jacket and so forth. He says if they don't do that, he's going to bring plagues upon the land of Egypt."
Yeah, but but what Moses and Aaron say to Pharaoh is pretty interesting. First,
it's a change in terminology.
Did God say a 3-day, like, this is, this sounds like Gilligan's Island, right? A 3-hour tour. God didn't say, go ask Pharaoh to give you a break for 3 days.
Now he step right up to the wilderness.
Yes.
Worship the Lord our God.
So, like,
dude,
just on the
just
flies.
Keep going.
You got like a Christian Gilligan's Island sitcom. But it's interesting, isn't it, though? Like, why would Moses and Aaron... let's wrestle with that. Like, why do you think they would change the words to say, "Hey, let us go on a 3-day tour"? to go in the
Right.
wilderness and
A
worship.
3-hour tour.
Yeah, like why do you
Well,
think they?
here's the thing. I think that demonstrates in again, this is opinion. This is not this is not written out here. I think it's one of those pieces that demonstrates the opportunity for human embellishment. Like we all do it, right? And especially coming from like the background in car sales and so forth, it goes from oh yeah, this is a great vehicle to this is the best vehicle ever. So it's one of those. It's like human embellishment. It goes from hey, tell them to let my people go, or I'm going to perform all these miracles, which are really plagues on the land. It transitions, and who knows? I think there is something to be said for people play it over and over in their minds, right? And the more that we layer things into our minds psychologically, oftentimes they end up being bigger in our head than what they are in the rest of the world. So it could be one of those that they've gone. I mean, because they've been on this journey, and they went there. They were denied.
First, they had to convince the Hebrew people
Right.
that they were telling the truth.
So first they got to convince the Hebrew people. Then the Hebrews end up getting more work thrown on them. The slave drivers and so forth. So it's one of those
Good
where
comments,
it plays
Pharoh.
over and over in their heads. It's like those layers of reinforcement. So it have transitioned from hey, I'm going to bring these plagues to I'm going to kill you all. Right.
Well, and dude, so Raul Rexus asked a good question. Did God want them to lie? And I think one of the things we know is this: like God doesn't need to lie. God's all powerful, right? So I think it seems logical we can rule out God wanting them to lie. And I think you touched on some things, right? There's human nature, but what I wrestle with is the why, though. Like what would cause it? And here's what I think is a reality. For Moses, we know that we talked about for weeks that Moses suffered with an identity crisis here, right? He didn't circumcise his son. So he was for all intents and purposes living like an Egyptian among Hebrew people. Takes a wife, a Hebrew wife, has a baby, a Hebrew baby, but then doesn't circumcise the baby.
Doesn't circumcise him as the covenant.
So, yeah, and like God was like furious with him, right? We saw in the previous chapter, we saw that his wife, was like, look, we're good now, we're Hebrews, and so don't kill my husband. But here's what
that was your favorite thing in the last week,
right?
I know.
It's just weird, dude. It's a weird detail to have in the Bible. The only thing we could draw from it is the identity crisis. But what stands out to me is this: Moses tried to do everything to avoid talking to Pharaoh. Right? He knows the power that Pharaoh has to kill. Moses has not been spending his life walking with God, right? He's been in Egypt for 40 years. Then he wandered around for a while. God talks to him in a bush, right? So we got all these things that happen, and this is like Moses' first encounter with God is the bush. But Moses has seen what Pharaoh has done to people. So I would imagine as Moses is approaching him, he's scared to say, hey, let them all go, or God is going to do some nasty things to you to show you his power. So when I think like a human being approaching someone of that much power, I go,
right.
Well, maybe if I just say, hey, we just need a couple days in the wilderness, and then we can skedaddle, and it's not like we have to come back and go, haha, gotcha. Like, I'm wondering if perhaps Moses' fear, the same fear that was telling him to get out of it, might have crept in, and he went, well, here, we'll make an excuse. And maybe that's also the reason that instead of him going, because it's interesting, instead of speaking in the authority of the creator of the universe to say, God said he's going to unleash these plagues on you, what does he say to Pharaoh? Look, if you don't let our people come and worship for 3 days, God's going to kill us. It's almost like, playing the hey, stepdad, I grew up in your house, like foster dad, adoptive dad, right. I know we're not on good terms, and you want to be dead because I killed that guy, but can you just have a little compassion here and let him go? Obviously the wrong play by Moses, but the humanity that I read in that seems like Moses didn't listen to God all the way. He went in 80% and then was like, well, I think a better plan is to appeal to his humanity. And we know, obviously, this doesn't work well.
It's almost like the setup for negotiation. And Raul Rexra says, we don't all tell lies. I think at some points everybody's lives, we lie to ourselves. Fear is a lie.
Yeah, we lie to
fear
ourselves
is made
sometimes.
up. Yeah, we lie to ourselves and so forth. So one of the things that I find interesting here is he diminishes the ask
Yeah.
and increases the potential. So diminish the ask, increase the potential damage, right? In hopes to get what he wants.
Well, when you say increase the potential damage, what do you mean by that?
Well, because where he's saying he goes from, instead of the plagues on Egypt and so forth, it's hey, he'll kill us, right?
Yeah, he minimizes it off of Pharaoh to like put it on himself.
Correct.
Like,
Right.
yeah, like instead of saying the damage is coming your way,
Right.
it's like it's us. That's kind of it's kind of, he's being kind
And
of
so
weak.
Pharaoh's like, next verse, he's like, yeah, bro, I don't care. Pharaoh,
Pretty much.
Pharaoh replied, we could do the street version. Yeah, bro, I don't care.
Yes, this is
Moses
now
and
the
Aaron,
Street Bible.
why are you distracting the people from their tasks? Get back to work. See, this is one of those spots where it's spotty for me, but I'm going to keep going. Get back to work. Look, there are many of your people in the land, and you're stopping them from their work. So they're talking with Pharaoh, and now all of a sudden everybody stopped. It's like, do they have an audience?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to pull up Strong's Concordance as we're doing this. I'm going to grab that in Exodus chapter 5. And
Okay.
come on, iPhone, you're the best phone in the world. Don't
5.5.
don't do an ad.
It's
iPhone 12.
It's not.
It is the best phone in the world. Okay, we're in chapter 5, verse 5. Okay, and Pharaoh said, behold, the people of the land are now many, and ye make them rest from their burdens. And Pharaoh commanded the same day the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, you shall no more give... Okay, never mind. I was just verse 4. 4 is what I'm looking at. He said, and then he said, get you unto your burdens. I just find it interesting that Pharaoh, like, was he talking to them, or did he not realize Moses and Aaron weren't living there in Egypt and they weren't under the work? Because it's almost like he says to them, hey, now stop asking me for stuff and go back to work.
Right. Yeah, so it's not that other people are watching or they're detracting him. It's like he's saying, hey, why are you even here? Go do your thing.
Yeah, maybe, and I think you hit on something though, because he says, "Why do you draw the people away from their work?" So, when I envision this, I see like Moses and Aaron coming in, maybe with the elders
Coming into the court, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now let's keep going.
You and I see it the same way.
Interesting picture.
That same day, Pharaoh sent this order to the Egyptian slave drivers and Israelite foremen: do not supply any more straw for making bricks. Make the people get it themselves, but still require them to make the same number of bricks before. Don't reduce the quota. They're lazy. That's why they're crying out. Let us go and offer sacrifices to the Lord. Load them down with your more work. Make them sweat. That will teach them to listen to lies. We can pause there because I know you got some thoughts.
Well, obviously we know like Pharaoh's like, okay, if you got enough free time to come whine to me, then I'm just going to give you more tasks and take it off the burden of my own people. To make the work harder on the men so they'll be occupied and pay no attention to these lies. Sounds like Pharaoh's obviously just saying, you've got, it's kind of like when you're at work and it's like if you've got time to stand, you got time to clean, right? It's kind of what it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, no, let's keep going. That's just, it just stands out to me that was just...
Well, I think it's one of those where he's almost looking at it, he's trying to diminish... It seems like there's some other pieces that Moses left out here when he was authoring it, like as if they were prophesizing to the people, and Pharaoh's going, "Hey, knock it off! Stop listening to their lies. Get back to work," type of deal. If that makes sense. And again, that's not said there specifically.
You know what the parallel that I see with this too, though, which is interesting,
that?
When you fast forward and look at when Jesus came on the scene, right? Mm-hmm. And how did the religious leaders, how did the Romans, treat the people that were following Jesus? Hey, good evening, thanks for jumping on Undiminished. Like if you look at the parallel, like Moses and Aaron go and say, hey, let our people go, right? Go worship in the wilderness and do this, and then we see. Interestingly enough, right, we see how Pharaoh responds to them, like, get back to work, get back to what you're doing. And the Romans had a very similar, they had allowed some of the Jewish things. But interestingly enough to me, the Pharisees bore a much closer resemblance to Pharaoh. Like, when Jesus came on the scene and people started following him, immediately the Pharisees are like, hey, you need to stop listening to this guy's lies and get back to being a good Jew.
Right.
Get back to keeping the laws and the rules and the activities we've told you to keep. So I just find it funny to see that similarity.
That sort of
but
parallel,
this time,
sure.
the people that are claiming to follow God. Okay.
So the slave drivers and foremen went out and told the people, "This is what Pharaoh says. I will not provide any more straw for you. Go and get it yourselves. Find it wherever you can, but you have to produce just as many bricks as before." So the people scattered throughout the land of Egypt in search of stubble to use as straw. Meanwhile, the Egyptian slave drivers continued to push hard, "Meet your daily quota of bricks, just as you did when we provided you with straw," they demanded. Sounds like the work environment today sometimes.
Dude. Yeah, no kidding.
Then they whipped the Israelite foremen they had put in charge of the work crews. "Why haven't you met your quotas either yesterday or today?" they demanded. So the Israelite foremen went to Pharaoh and pleaded with him. "Please don't treat your servants like this," they begged. "We're given no straw, but the slave drivers still demand make bricks. We're being beaten, but it isn't our fault. Your own people are to blame." But Pharaoh shouted, "You're just lazy. Lazy. That's why you're saying, 'Let us go and offer sacrifices to the Lord.' Now get back to work. No straw will be given to you, but you must still produce your full quota of bricks." The Israelite foremen could see that they were in serious trouble when they were told, "You must not reduce the number of bricks each day." As they left Pharaoh's court, they confronted Moses and Aaron, who were waiting outside for them. Foreman said to him, "May the Lord judge and punish you for making us stink before Pharaoh and his officials. You have put a sword into their hands, an excuse to kill us."
Ooh, let's just hang out there for a sec, dude.
Okay.
Verses 20 and 21. I like the message. As they left Pharaoh, they found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet him. The foreman said, "May God see what you've done and judge you. You made us stink before Pharaoh and his servants. You put a weapon in his hands that's going to kill us." Dude, what stands out big in the Israelite foremen? Obviously, those are the leaders, the elders, the head
Sure.
people, the ones that Pharaoh trusted enough to put in charge of the other Hebrews. And where were they one chapter ago in the way it's written? And from then to now.
Right. Before they're like, "Oh, hey, we know God sent you," and now all of a sudden, literally, they're putting in overnight, according to the story, literally overnight or over the course of 2 days, they've literally in their mind, or these elders. Here's what I take from those 2 points: they've abandoned God and put more weight in men than they did put in the Word of God.
Yeah, doesn't this kind of seem like we're going to see this history repeat itself over and over?
We're seeing it repeated right now.
Yeah, but
we're
the
seeing
Israelite
it repeated
people,
right now.
Oh, bro, we see it today all the time. But the Israelite people, they wanted a king. God gave them kings. We saw how that worked out, right?
Mm-hmm.
They for some reason, right? And these folks have been able to see God work, right? We know they're going to see it, and they're going to still complain. But these folks who have been crying out to God, right?
Save us, please.
Yeah, they've the Sa'aka, right? They've let out the cry that reached heaven, and God said, "I'm sending you a savior to get you out of Egypt." And they're like, "Okay, you've shown us these things. You're here to save us. God really sent you." But their belief, their faith didn't exceed their fear. And what did you say earlier? Fear is a what?
Fear is a lie.
Yeah,
fear is made up in the moment.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
it's
often
an emotion, right? There's some people who can turn it off.
Sure.
I can't all the time. I'm going to be honest. I can't all the time. There are things that I get afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
But this is fascinating that the people cried out to their God. God sent them what they asked for, and they find a little bit of strife, and now they're peeling back on God.
Well, and like I said, I think we do that, especially we as a society. Here we are in the United States right now. There are so many times that we as a people, in mass, 20,000 foot view, I'm not saying you as an individual, me as an individual, and so forth, but we cry out for God, please do something. God, you have to, we'll do anything. Just send somebody. We need this change, right? And then the change doesn't come along right away, or the movement, we start to have a little bit of pushback, and we abandon it, and people are like, "Well, I knew it." And it's like,
Yeah.
well, no. I mean, the part of that, some of that is, in the way I believe, some of that is God tempering us for, like, hey, that sometimes it's not just one battle in the war, right?
Yeah, sometimes you've got to be strengthened, right? If you think of the
Absolutely.
way the military, my son's a Marine, right? The first thing they do is find the lowest point that you're at, right? They dig and dig and dig to get you to a starting point where they can build you in the way that they believe is the strongest. Now, I'm not aligning the Marines with God. I'm not saying the military is God. I'm not
No.
doing any of that stuff. I'm grateful for them, and I love that we have the freedoms we have because of them. But I'm not trying to like do some American Christian nationalism crap.
No, I get it.
But what I am saying is that you've hit the nail on the head with the way that this is still continuing. Here's an example of like God going, okay, I know what you're going to be facing. Like right now, you're used to being basically, you're used to being told what to do in every aspect of your life. And soon you're going to be free to make your own decisions. And that's going to take some wisdom. It's going to take some discernment. It's going to take some strength. And so there, like, in order to get to the freedom, you know, there's a couple roadblocks they've got to bust through. And interestingly, though, fear, you said, is a lie, but fear is also very contagious.
Absolutely.
And we see that today, but we see it right here in the story, because go ahead and read verses 22 and 23.
Yep. So I love this. Then Moses went back to the Lord and protested, "Why have you brought all this trouble on your own people, Lord? Why did you send me?" Right? This is exactly like we're saying. Why did you send me? Ever since I came to Pharaoh as your spokesman, he's been even more brutal to your people, and you have done nothing to rescue them. So he's like, dang it, I knew it. I said I was going to do this. Moving into 6. He says,
Yeah, he literally just said to God, why are you treating your people so badly? Like, Moses didn't just go back and go, hey, Pharaoh refused. Pharaoh's being horrible to him. The fear of Pharaoh that foreman had, that he brought to Moses, and he says, when he said to him, he's like, it's interesting, though, because the foreman that came to Moses, the taskmaster, said, may God see what you have done, Moses, right? So he's saying, this is your fault, Moses. You must have screwed something up in the translation from God to Pharaoh. And what did we actually just see what happened? Moses did screw something up in the translation from God to Pharaoh.
absolutely.
So Moses came there, did not say what God said, so did not do what God told him to do. And as a result, and God said Pharaoh was going to deny him, and he said it was going to be hard. But interestingly enough, God knew also that Moses wasn't going to listen to him.
But that's also, it's another human trait that we see happen all the time. We'll call that, you can hashtag this, hashtag Teflon Moses, right? They're
Yes.
like, I'm going to direct this to you, and Moses is like, can't stick to me, right? God, how come you did this to your people?
Yeah, but dude, it's funny because what Moses is doing right here, like what he is doing, like we see that today. Like how many times do people go, God, please heal my family member that's sick and hurting, right? They'll go, all right, and they cry out to God, and it doesn't happen. But instead of going, God, why didn't this happen? Like, God, why didn't you answer this? They go, God, you did this. You did this.
That's so
right?
true.
And what just happened here, the Israelites took the brunt of this. Moses and Aaron didn't get beat, right? It's the slaves that are working that got beat. And so the foreman, I find that there's some wisdom here in him acknowledging, going, may God see what you have done and judge you, because you made us stink in front of Pharaoh. You made us look bad, right?
You put us in this position.
You put us in this spot, and now we're going to die because you did something wrong, Moses. And instead of Moses going back to God and doing, like, he's met the God of the universe and crying out for help.
Hey,
going,
what did I miss?
God, they're going to die. Can you please do something about it? He goes, God, why are you treating your people so badly?
It's interesting.
What in the cold turkey hell is going on here, Moses?
Yeah. So moving into 6. It says, then the Lord told Moses, now you'll see what I'll do to Pharaoh. When he feels the force of my strong hand, he'll let the people go. In fact, he'll force them to leave his land. And God said to Moses, I am Yahweh the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob as El Shaddai, God Almighty. But I did not reveal my name, Yahweh, to them. and I affirm my covenant with them. Under its terms, I promised to give them the land of Canaan, where they were living as foreigners. You can be sure that I have heard the groans of the people of Israel, who are now slaves of the Egyptians, and I am well aware of my covenant with them. So
Dude, that's a
I
good
think that's
place to end the night.
well, and I think it's a good retort because he comes back with like, "Listen, dude, you don't need to tell me what I did. You don't need, you know."
Yeah, you know what he also does though, right here, dude? Like, look at verse 1. Like, so Moses just came to God and said, this is your fault, right? Like, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
You did this. There's another story in the Bible, in the first part of the Bible, where Adam and Eve eat a fruit. And when God talks to Adam, what did God say? Or what did Adam say to God? The woman you gave me did this. So Adam pushes back on God, and God shows an abundance of grace in spite of that, saying, listen, he makes clothes for him, and he says, you're out of the garden, and these things are going to happen, but your life's not over, and I'm still with you. God didn't abandon them when he could have. We see that same grace here, though, because Moses just comes back and blames God. And what does God say? He says, but the Lord said to Moses, now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. He didn't reprimand Moses. He didn't say, you non-listening, get the message wrong, tongue-stuttering moron. Like, he didn't come down on Moses, dude. And I think that's the beautiful thing about God. Like, Moses flat out did not do what God said.
No, he didn't get
and
the
then
message right.
he came back and yelled at God for it. Like, for his own stupidity, he yells
Look
at God.
what you did.
And God goes, he goes, watch what I do to Pharaoh. Watch how I prove my strength to Pharaoh. And he said all these things. He said, watch how I keep my promises. Like, that to me is a beautiful, beautiful thing to see, that God, in spite of Moses' rebellion, when he was behaving like an enemy of God, God still shows him grace and says, watch me keep my promise. And you fast forward time. You fast forward time to New Testament scripture, right? And you see these words, when we were still God's enemy, he what? He rescued us. Same thing here.
So before we close for the night, there's like 2 paragraphs. I want to go through these paragraphs because, and just so anybody who's watching this, we're trying to keep the show about 30, 45 minutes, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks to pick up. But I want to read right up to
that'll be our last show for the summer.
For the summertime,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
I want to read right up to where we hit the ancestors of Moses and Aaron, because that stuff to me is always like, you know. So therefore say to the people of Israel, I'm the Lord, I will free you from your oppression, will rescue you from your slavery in Egypt, I will redeem you with a powerful arm and great acts of judgment, I will claim you as my own people, I will be your God, and then you will know that I am the Lord your God, who has freed you from the oppression in Egypt. I will bring you into the land I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to you as your very own possession. I am the Lord. So there's that quick, it's like, dude, watch this. Here's how this is going to go down. So Moses told the people of Israel that what the Lord had said. They refused to listen anymore. They'd become too discouraged by the brutality of their slavery. Then the Lord said to Moses, go back to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and tell him to let the people of Israel leave his country. But Lord, Moses objected, my own people won't listen to me. How can I expect Pharaoh to listen? I'm such a clumsy speaker. So now we go falling, but let me fall back on the shortcomings again, right? And then we'll close on this one for the night.
And that's folks. The one, by the way, in Hebrew, where Moses said, I have uncircumcised lips. And let me, like, can I just touch one thing on that?
Absolutely.
So when Moses says, listen, if the Israelites won't listen to me, why would Pharaoh listen to me, since I'm unskilled in speech, since I have uncircumcised lips? The interesting thing is, and there's a couple things we could draw from this, but one thing is that when we look at Moses' conversation here, the words uncircumcised lips could point at a couple of things. One, his identity crisis that we dealt with before, right? Like, he's like, my own people won't even listen to me because I didn't live as one of them. And when Pharaoh sees me, you know, he just sees me as, you know, lesser than. Like, he's basically saying all of the things, like, I'm not the right fit for either of these people. So if the ones that you're sending me to won't listen, how would the one you're sending me against give me any credibility? And I think that's an identity crisis. We'll call it imposter syndrome today.
Sure.
But that's something we all wrestle with, dude. Like me, like I've started companies that crushed it, and then I had COVID destroy my whole conference business. And I'm going to tell you, coming out of that, there was a 6-year period though leading up where, man, I wasn't living my life following God. And when I felt God say, dude, what are you doing? Like, I gave you all these gifts. Why are you being an idiot? Right? Basically.
Sure.
I got to tell you that when we started having conversations about God and we started going live and I started sharing the word, I'm like, I had imposter syndrome big time. Like, who's going to listen to me? Like, just mere months ago. Right? People are, seeing me act a fool. Why would they ever listen now? And I have to think Moses feels the same way, right? Like
100%.
He killed an Egyptian guy, just a few short years before, right? Like he's done all these things. So the feelings are understandable, but the beautiful thing is that God never acknowledges those shortcomings as being true at any point in the story. And I love that part about it.
He just keeps pushing him. He's like, no, you've got this and so forth. And we'll close on that where it says, but the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, gave them orders for the Israelites and for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. The Lord commanded Moses and Aaron to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt. And then it goes in the next several chapters are ancestors of Moses and Aaron and so forth. And then we get into 7. So we'll pick up from 7 in a couple weeks.
Yeah. And Raul Rexorus asked a question. Is there any evidence of this story being true or legendary? If you don't mind, I'll just touch that really quick. And
absolutely.
Yeah, there's transcripts that are thousands and thousands of years old that have been found. To question if they're legendary, one could do the same thing about a lot of Greek history, right? None of us are thousands of years old, but the writings are that have been discovered. So, just like anything, Raul Rexorus, you got a choice whether or not you want to treat it like a legend or treat it like truth. And I would say it would be impossible to keep a story over that many thousands of years, have a storyline that flows together so perfectly, written by so many different authors. But there's 2 ways to think, which is our Western mind, which is like, prove it to me, and then the Eastern mind, which is, I know God exists because I feel God's presence in my life. I believe this to be true from both perspectives. I think there's plenty of physical evidence to show the age of the writing and because of so many authors and the story staying consistent. But I truly believe this because I feel the presence of God in my life. Everybody's going to have to figure out for themselves what they believe.
And when you compare a lot of the writings in the Bible to landmarks, archaeological discoveries, and so forth, like you're talking about writings, and there are other pieces. There are multiple pieces in the Bible. So where you're saying, if there's no evidence, we need to accept it as legendary. We have tons of legends that are older. Well, so here's the irony.
We have tons of history too that literally is thousands of years old, and there's no possible way, short of a time machine, to go back and say, yep, these things in Roman history or Persian history are true, but we choose to believe that they're history. I choose to believe the same about the Bible. And if you don't, Rex, I mean, that's a journey you've got to wrestle with yourself. Our goal here isn't to make converts on the show. It's to have conversations about what we believe, and if people enjoy the conversation, hopefully they participate. But listen, my job's not to try and convince you to believe in this. I think the Holy Spirit does the work of the Holy Spirit. If somebody genuinely wants to say, hey man, if this is true, I want to believe in it, and they start reading the Bible and they open themselves up, I think God talks to them. But there you go.
Well, here's one of the interesting thing where Raul Rexorus continues to say we. What you need to change your terminology to is I. It's not we.
Yeah, not everybody thinks the same.
Yeah. Because I'm not on that same side of where you're saying, if there's no evidence, though Matt and I, as a couple of laymen here, shared the evidence and information that we have, and you're choosing not to accept that. That's fine. No harm, no foul, but that's you, not we.
That's fair. Yeah, and I know that...
You and Raul Rexorus, not... You and I are on the same page.
Yeah, well, no, I get it. No, I mean, you and I have talked about this, and I have
Sure.
my friend who was the pastor at the church plant that I was part of, who had stage 4 cancer, and the best oncologists in the country had said, "You're dead meat. It's done. You're over." And we prayed for him, and literally a month later, he was in complete remission after doing no more chemo, no more anything. So, you know.
That was
I
actually
don't-
back in our Miracles episode. If
Yeah.
Raul Rexrus wants to go back and look in the playlist, because we talked about it at that
Yeah,
point.
and I want to acknowledge one thing as we wrap up. I don't believe by any stretch of the imagination that when somebody hears these stories that they won't have doubts or questions. And
Sure.
I didn't just wake up one morning and go, I believe all of this. I had heard the story of the prodigal son, and I just said I had never experienced an unconditional love like that. And so I said, if this is true, I want that in my life. So I want to learn more about this God that they're talking about and this Jesus that they're talking about. And I read, and the more I read, the more I went, if this is real, I want to know this. And the more I opened myself up to go, well, how many other things can't I explain that I choose to believe in or put my faith in every day? And there are thousands of things throughout our lives.
Absolutely.
And so, to me, it always comes down to a choice. What do you want to believe, right? Some people go, well, I don't want to believe these stories. Okay. Well, if you choose to go, I don't want to believe in them. And some people, they believe different stuff or whatever. But, people are going to choose what they want to believe. And that's where they're at. So,
So kind of last question, because Raul poses this, and we're coming to the end of our show. So Raul, not that we're avoiding that, but the question of scientific studies of prayer all demonstrate that prayer works no better than chance, right? That's actually not correct. The scientific studies of prayer, there are multiple studies that prove that prayer and again that you can't say all demonstrate that it works no better than chance, because that's not a correct scientific statement.
There are arguments on both sides. There are doctors that will tell you it does. There's doctors that tell you it won't. But here's what I'll tell you personally. I know a guy. I know a guy to this day, still alive, stage 4 lymphoma, was going to be dead, was told there was no more hope, was told to give up, prayed over him. 30 days later, he has no cancer. 4 years later, and years, decades later, cancer-free. And the only thing that changed was prayer. So, beautiful. And Rex, you can Google it. I'm pretty certain that there will be plenty of Google articles that'll come up. So that's what we would do if we were to give you the resources. But there you go. If you actually genuinely want to find out, and if you go, man, if I like, you're getting a firsthand experience right now from me, from a guy named Leander Robbie in Kalamazoo, Michigan, who was the pastor of a little church called Threads, who was healed from stage 4 cancer, where the oncologist said, you're done, you're dead. You got somewhere between a couple weeks and 6 months, and 1 month later, his cancer was gone. He was still bald, and his hair grew back. But there you go. So you can Google all the things you want, but this isn't a conversation to change your mind or ours. You're not going to change the beliefs that I have just because you choose not to believe, and God bless you for whatever you think, Raul Rexrus. But if you genuinely have a desire to get to know if God is real, the best way to figure that out is to open up the Bible and
crack open one of these bad boys.
Yep, and because of the questioning, which, by the way, thank you for the questions, because I think they're good ones.
Absolutely.
I would encourage you to read 2 books, because they are literally written to Westerners. Mark, the book of Mark, was written with a Roman audience intended, which is much more like our thinking, and the book of John was written that way as well. So those 2 gospels are 2 different perspectives of different parts of Jesus' life that would be great. So there you go.
And with that, folks, we appreciate you joining us tonight. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. That's May 28th for more Friday Night Fire.
Boom.
And we'll see you back here in 2 and 2, right?
Love you, bro. Appreciate you, man.
Love you too, man. We'll see
You
you
and the
in a
family
couple
have a
weeks.
good dinner. See you then.
You too. Bye.
Bye.